When news quietly surfaced that Taylor Swift had distributed nearly $200 million in bonuses to her tour crew, most people fixated on the number, doing quick math, comparing it to their own lives, then moving on. But the number was never the point. What mattered was the intention behind it, a decision so deliberate, so strategically thought out, that it subtly rewrote expectations across the entire music industry, without a press conference, without a speech, and without seeking credit. What happened during the Eras Tour wasn't a spontaneous act of generosity. It was a calculated shift in power, one whose foundations had been laid years before the first note was ever played. Long before the Eras Tour became a cultural phenomenon, the touring industry had already settled into an unspoken order. The artist was the face, the production was the spectacle, and the crew remained invisible. Fans saw fireworks, flawless costume changes, towering LED stages, and seamless transitions between eras, but never the 14-hour days, months away from home, physical exhaustion, missed milestones, and the reality that for many crew members, touring meant constant sacrifice with little long-term security. For decades, this imbalance was considered normal. When a tour succeeded, executives, labels, and investors celebrated, while the crew might receive a modest, forgettable bonus, if they were lucky, something that acknowledged effort without truly changing anything. Taylor Swift knew this system intimately. She had grown up inside it, watched loyalty rewarded selectively, and seen power concentrate at the top while the people who kept the machine running remained replaceable. And after years of fighting for ownership of her own work, her understanding of what success really meant began to shift. The Eras Tour was never intended to be just another stop on a touring calendar. It was conceived as a career-spanning statement, a reflection, and a full-scale production that demanded more from everyone involved. That level of ambition came with real cost. Entire crews committed months of their lives long before anyone knew how historic the tour would become, before record-breaking numbers, sold-out stadiums, or headlines calling it the biggest tour in history. And that timing mattered to Swift because she didn't want success to feel accidental or unfair to the people who made it possible. Somewhere in the planning process, she made a quiet but defining choice. Gratitude wouldn't be symbolic or reactive, it would be structural. That was the moment Bonus Day stopped being an idea and became a rule. Because the impact didn't stop with the crew. Once word spread, the industry couldn't ignore it. Quiet conversations started happening in offices and backstage corridors. Expectations shifted overnight. Was this the new standard, or an impossible one? Some praised it as leadership. Others privately worried it had raised the bar too high, not because it was wrong, but because it exposed how low the bar had been for so long. Swift never framed it as charity, she framed it as fairness. If the tour became historic, the people who made it historic deserved to share that moment in a way that matched its scale. And that framing mattered, because it reframed power. Success stopped being something hoarded at the top and started looking like something shared. In the end, the $197 million figure will always grab attention. It's big, it's clean, it fits neatly into a headline. But the real legacy of that decision isn't financial. It's the handwritten notes, the wax seals, the refusal to delegate gratitude, the quiet message sent to an entire industry without a press release or a speech. True appreciation isn't measured by how much you give when it's easy. It's measured by how much effort you're willing to put into saying thank you when no one expects you to. And that may be the part of this story that lasts the longest, long after the lights go down and the tour finally ends. For touring veterans, the figure wasn't just surprising, it was destabilizing. It shattered a long-standing, unspoken rule of the industry. No matter how successful a tour becomes, crew bonuses are expected to stay modest. Suddenly, an uncomfortable question was hanging in the air. If this was possible, why had it never happened before? Managers found themselves having tense conversations behind closed doors. Artists who had built reputations on being fair began to look stingy by comparison. Across the industry, crew members started realizing something they had felt for years but had never seen confirmed. Something fundamental had been missing. And yet, none of that noise came from Taylor Swift herself. She didn't leak the number. She didn't brand it as charity. She didn't step forward to explain or defend it publicly. Instead, she focused on one thing: how it would be delivered. And that's where the story takes a turn that logic alone can't explain. In an industry built on delegation, Swift chose the least efficient option imaginable. She decided to make it personal. Not symbolically personal, physically personal. She sat down and wrote handwritten notes for every single crew member, one by one, each message crafted individually, not copied, not templated, not automated. The notes weren't long, they didn't need to be. Each one delivered a simple message: "You matter, and I see you." Every note was placed into its own package, every package sealed by hand, and then came a detail so unexpected it almost sounds unreal. Wax seals. Hundreds of them. Late nights, melted wax, open flames, a process so chaotic she later joked the fire department nearly had to get involved. But that chaos was intentional. This wasn't about speed, it wasn't about optics, it wasn't about efficiency, it was about effort. She wanted the weight of gratitude to be felt before the money ever was. In her own words, the money could never carry her full appreciation. It was simply the clearest way she knew to say thank you. And when the envelopes were finally ready, bonus day arrived. 100. Ever wondered how much Taylor Swift makes compared to her crew? This video reveals the shocking difference in salaries between Taylor and her team. Taylor Swift's $197 million gift is a stark contrast to the typical crew paychecks. Learn more about the generosity of the music industry powerhouse in this eye-opening video analysis.